welcome to my viewers. Tonight's story is a chilling reminder that even in paradise, danger can follow you when you least expect it. So grab a snack, dim the lights, and get ready, because this isn't just a travel story. It's a nightmare hidden behind a friendly smile and an open window. I was 25 when I decided to take a solo trip to Rio de Janeiro. My favorite DJ was scheduled to perform that weekend, and Rio had always been high on my bucket list. As someone who traveled solo dozens of times before, I wasn't nervous. I was excited. I booked an Airbnb just outside the city, away from the tourist-heavy areas, but still close enough to explore. It was a cute one-story house, tucked between worn cobblestone streets and low stucco walls. From the outside, it looked modest, almost too quiet, but inside it was clean, modern, and surprisingly stylish. Air conditioning buzzed softly, a small welcome gift sat on the table, and the glass shower in the bathroom gleamed like it had just been polished. That Friday, I touched down in Rio, dropped my bags at the Airbnb, grabbed a quick dinner, and headed straight to the rooftop venue to see my DJ. The music pulsed under the stars, and the energy was electric, unfiltered joy, the kind you feel in your bones. I met 3 other travelers there, James, Ethan, and Jess. Ethan and Jess were a couple. James was the chill third wheel tagging along. We hit it off immediately, laughing and dancing until 2 a.m. The next morning I met up with them again. We got brunch, explored the Christ the Redeemer statue, rode cable cars up Sugarloaf Mountain, and lounged along Rio's iconic beaches. It was everything I'd hoped the trip would be. But that night, things took a turn. Ethan, Jess, and James had tickets to a different show. I hadn't planned on attending. No worries, I was used to being on my own. I decided to explore the neighborhood a bit, and eventually started heading back toward the Airbnb. As I walked through narrow streets, with cracked pavement and pastel buildings, the sun dipped low, and the air turned sticky and quiet. On my way back, I passed a small restaurant tucked between a market and a laundromat. There was a faded menu taped to the window, with some English translations. I was hungry. It looked affordable, so I went in. The place was dim, almost unnervingly dark, with yellow bulbs casting long shadows on scratched wooden floors. The dining area stretched like a narrow hallway. There were only a few customers, some seated deep toward the back, and one man sitting alone at a table directly beside mine. He looked to be in his early 50s, with short black hair and a tanned, leathery face. Something about him instantly made my skin crawl. The server approached, speaking in Portuguese, and I responded as best I could, asking if he spoke English. He nodded, then switched over. I placed my order, trying to keep things simple. That's when the man at the next table leaned over and said with a thick Portuguese accent, "Your Portuguese very sexy." He smiled. I forced a polite nod. He launched into small talk, half in English, half in Portuguese, correcting my phrases like some creepy tutor. He asked where I was from, why I was visiting, what I'd seen today, and most disturbingly, where I was staying. My gut clenched. I lied and said I was crashing with a local friend. He kept prying. His gaze was unblinking, his tone overly familiar. I kept looking at my phone, hoping he'd take the hint. He didn't. Then he said it again, this time more firmly. "You are very sexy when you speak my language." It hit me like cold water. I didn't know what his intentions were, but the air around me suddenly felt tight. I prayed for the server to come back quickly. Thankfully, my food arrived, a pork stew that smelled stronger than it looked. He finally shut up, eating his meal slowly as I shoveled mine down. When I asked for the check, he did too, even though he still had half his plate left. I knew right then I needed to get out fast. I paid, got up, muttered a quick bye, and walked out the door. I didn't look back. The sun had set while I was inside. Now the streets were darker, emptier, and I was very aware of every footstep behind me. At the next intersection, I turned to check the road and froze. Across the street, under a broken streetlight, stood the man from the restaurant. He looked at me, but when I saw him, he turned his head away, like he was just waiting for the light. My pulse raced. Maybe it was a coincidence, maybe he lived nearby. Still, I picked up the pace. Block after block, I kept checking over my shoulder. At first he was gone, but when I reached the Airbnb and turned to look one last time, he was standing at the corner, partially hidden by shadows. Just watch. I felt something collapse in my chest. He knew where I was staying. I got inside, locked the door, pulled every curtain shut, and turned off all the lights. My hands trembled as I called my dad. He told me to stay calm, lock the doors, check the window, and maybe keep something sharp nearby. I tried to relax, but my nerves were fried. Still, it was my last night in Rio, and I didn't want him to ruin it. I called an Uber, went downtown, and drank at a bar, until the anxiety faded into background noise. Around 1 a.m., I returned to the Airbnb, a little tipsy, craving sleep. I walked in, kicked off my shoes, and sat on the couch to unwind. That's when I noticed it. The room felt off. I heard faint sounds, wind. Then I saw it. One of the kitchen window blinds was swaying, caught in a breeze. I had shut every window. The AAC had been on all day. I stared, heart pounding. Someone had opened that window. Someone was inside. I didn't scream. I didn't wait. I bolted out the front door, phone in hand, heart jackhammering in my chest. I ran across the street and crouched behind a bush, barely breathing. I dialed the emergency number, trying to explain in broken Portuguese that someone had broken in. By some miracle, the police arrived within minutes. When I saw their car lights, I stepped out from hiding, waving frantically. One of the officers spoke some English. I explained the man from earlier, the restaurant, the window. They entered the house cautiously, guns drawn. A minute later, they emerged, with the man in handcuffs. He had been inside my Airbnb, hiding, waiting. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Relief, fear, rage, all at once. He didn't get the chance to hurt me, but he was planning to. If I hadn't noticed that swaying blind, if I'd gone into the bedroom, I don't let myself imagine what could have happened. They hauled him away. I never saw him again, and I never went back to Brazil. Not because I didn't love the city, but because I knew evil can wear the face of friendliness, and one wrong turn can become a permanent nightmare. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, stay safe out there, and always trust your instincts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real horror stories. And remember, sometimes it's not the place that's dangerous, it's the people watching you when you don't even know they're there. Let me tell you about the most terrifying night of my life. It started off so normal, quiet, even forgettable, but by the end of it, I was sprinting through empty streets, chased by a man who called me cutie and promised to cut me if I screamed. If you've ever brushed off that weird gut feeling about someone, don't, please, learn from my mistake. It was the holidays. Most of my friends had gone home or were away traveling, and the days felt long and empty. I wasn't the type to sit still, and I needed a little extra cash, so I figured I'd find a part-time job to keep myself busy before college started back up. After about a week of sending out resumes and following up with a few places, I finally got a call. A nearby restaurant, small, family-owned, and only a few blocks from my place, was looking for help. They asked me to come in for a trial shift. I already had some waitering experience, so I wasn't nervous. I showed up, did my thing, and by the end of the night, the owner pulled me aside and offered me the job. I should have felt relieved. Instead, something about the place gave me an odd feeling. It was hard to put into words. dim lighting, peeling wallpaper, and a strange smell that would sneak up on you at random times, like a moldy breath from the walls themselves. It wasn't outright scary, but it was off. Still, I needed the money, and I kept reminding myself this wasn't permanent, just a short gig, until classes started again. One night, toward the end of a quiet shift, I found myself alone out front. It was about 10 p.m., and I was cleaning cutlery and wiping down menus, waiting for the last table to leave. It was a group of 4 large men, loud, scruffy, and clearly intoxicated, the kind of guys you wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley. If I passed them on the street, I probably would have crossed to the other side. Eventually, they finished their meals and stood up to leave. One of them lumbered over to the register with a crooked grin on his face. His clothes were stained, his teeth were yellowed, and his eyes were too focused, too curious. I offered a polite smile, trying to keep it professional. "That's $42.50 altogether," I said. He handed me a pile of crinkled bills and leaned in a little too close. I'd seen that look before, the one that said, "You're not a person to me, you're something to mess with." He gave a chuckle and asked, "You doing anything tonight, cutie?" I didn't even blink. "Thank you. Have a good night," I said firmly, avoiding eye contact. I hoped my tone made it clear I wasn't playing along. He laughed and mumbled something under his breath as he backed out of the door, the others trailing behind him. I locked up as fast as I could, cleaned the last of the dishes, and got out of my uniform. The last kitchen hand waved goodbye as I stepped out into the cool night air. It was quiet. My house was only a few blocks away, 10 minutes max, so I always walked home. Gas was expensive, and the walk usually helped me unwind, but that night felt heavier. I was about 5 minutes into my walk, passing a shuttered storefront, when I heard it, a loud, sharp whistle. I stopped dead in my tracks. I slowly turned my head. There across the street was him, the same man from the restaurant, standing under a flickering streetlight, smiling like we were old friends. His posture was casual, one hand in his coat pocket, the other waving me over. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. I froze for a second too long. Then my legs finally kicked into gear. I turned and walked faster, heart hammering in my chest. I could hear his footsteps echoing behind me. Then I heard them get quicker. He was following me. Panic surged through me. I turned a corner and broke into a full sprint. My backpack bounced on my shoulders, my breath quick and shallow. I didn't dare look behind me. I didn't want to see how close he was. The only sound was my pounding feet and his right behind mine. Then a hand grabbed my shoulder. He yanked me back with terrifying strength, and I almost fell backward. I spun around, and there he was, face flushed with rage. The friendly grin was gone. His eyes were wild. He leaned in close and hissed, "Don't scream or I'll cut you." My entire body went rigid. My mind screamed at me to do something, but I was frozen. I thought, this is it. This is how it ends. But somewhere inside me, something snapped. I don't know if it was adrenaline or instinct, but a sudden white-hot rage overtook me. I lashed out and clawed at his face, my nails digging into his eyes. He shrieked in pain, an awful guttural sound that I'll never forget. He clutched his face and stumbled back. I didn't wait. I turned and ran like my life depended on it, because it did. My legs burned, my lungs ached, but I didn't stop until I reached my front door. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice before finally getting them into the lock. I slammed the door behind me and collapsed on the floor, sobbing. The whole world spun around me. My roommates heard the commotion and came running downstairs. They found me trembling on the floor, still trying to catch my breath. I could barely speak, but I managed to tell them what happened. They were horrified, comforted me, got me some water, made sure all the doors were locked. The next morning, I called the restaurant and quit. I didn't explain why, I just couldn't go back. The owners were kind people. I actually liked working there, but the thought of him being out there, maybe watching, maybe waiting,
was too much. I've since gone back to college. Life has moved forward. Slowly, but I still carry that night with me. I still get nightmares. Sometimes I wake up with my heart pounding, thinking I hear that whistle again. And sometimes when I walk home alone, I catch myself glancing over my shoulder a little too often, just in case. Thanks for listening. Stay safe out there. And if your gut ever tells you something's off, listen, you might only get one chance. If this story hit home, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life horror stories. And drop a comment if you've ever had a close call like this. Stay alert, and take care.
You ever get that gut feeling someone's watching you? That prickle on the back of your neck when you just know someone's eyes are on you, even if you can't see them. That's how it started for me. Welcome and thanks for joining me. What I'm about to share isn't just a cautionary tale about creepy customers. It's about how quickly something innocent can spiral into something terrifying. This is the story of how a $5 tip nearly ruined my life. I was 19 and broke, like eating instant noodles for dinner broke. So I picked up a second job waitressing at a small roadside diner just off the highway. Nothing fancy, greasy menus, bottomless coffee and a jukebox that hadn't worked since the 80s. It was open until 3 a.m. on weeknights and ran 24 hours on the weekends. During those long weekend nights, it filled up with drunken college kids looking for pancakes and fries after last call. Weeknights though, it was quiet, too quiet sometimes. Just me, the buzzing lights, and maybe a half-asleep trucker or someone getting off an overnight shift. I worked the overnight shifts twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Any more and I think I would have collapsed from exhaustion. I was the only server past 10 p.m. since traffic was light after that hour. The stillness of those nights could be soothing, until it wasn't. It was around 1 a.m., on one of those shifts when he walked in. A large man, late 40s, maybe 50, balding, heavy-set. A red flannel shirt clung awkwardly to his thick frame. I was seated behind the counter, scrolling through my phone and immediately straightened up when I saw him. Professional smile on table or booth? I asked. He gave me a slow, deliberate grin. Booth's fine. Wherever you want to sit me, sweetheart. Right away, the way he looked at me made my skin crawl, like I was the special on the menu. I tried not to let it show. I seated him at the corner booth, closest to the window, and handed him a menu. He didn't even look at it before saying, "You know what I want. A burger and a chocolate milkshake. Thick like you." I gave a polite fake laugh and jotted the order. His name, he said, was Trevor, and Trevor wouldn't stop staring. Even after I served him his food, he kept glancing up every few seconds, eyes lingering just a bit too long. Eventually, he was the only customer left. He waved me over and asked for the check, which I brought quickly, hoping that would be the end of our interaction. When he left, I went to clean the table and saw the tip. $5, along with his phone number scribbled on the receipt, right next to a crude winking face. I crumpled it without hesitation and tossed it in the trash. Gross, creepy. But I figured that would be the last of Trevor. I was wrong. A few nights later, another dead shift, another heavy silence, and in walks Trevor again. This time his energy was different, more confident, like he thought we had some sort of connection. "How's my favorite server doing tonight?" he asked, like we were old friends. I wanted to groan. Instead, I smiled politely and showed him to the same booth. Again he started flirting, asking about my life, my interests. I played along just enough, thinking maybe he'd leave a better tip this time. But that was a mistake, because what he saw as interest was just survival. You learn quickly in food service that a fake smile can keep creepy men calm. That night, he told me about his boat, said I should come with him sometime. I asked what kind of boat it was, half joking, and he pulled out his phone to show me a picture. It looked like a rusty old dinghy that would probably sink in shallow water. "It's just big enough for two," he said with a wink. I made some small comment about my dad having a boat too, hoping it would shift the conversation.
I should have said I had a boyfriend. I should have made something up. But I was tired and just wanted to survive the shift. When I dropped the check, he asked for my number. I gave my usual excuse. Sorry, it's against company policy. He seemed disappointed but nodded. And then when I cleaned the table after he left, there it was again. His number scribbled on the receipt with a new message. Don't be shy this time. It's our little secret. Another $5 tip. Cheap. Creepy. Persistent. I prayed that was the last I'd see of him. But Trevor came back. Like clockwork, the next week around 2 a.m., right when the diner was dead again. It started to feel like he was waiting out in the parking lot for it to clear. He walked in, didn't sit down, just looked at me with this weirdly serious expression and said, "You don't call." There was no smile this time, no playfulness. His voice was cold. I told you I can't give my number out," I said, trying to sound firm but polite. He stared at me for a second longer, then turned and walked out. No food, no order, just that. I tried to shake it off, but the weird feeling stayed with me like a film on my skin. The next day at my other job, I got a text from one of the waitresses at the dine. "Hey, do you know the fat bald guy that comes in sometimes?" I immediately knew who she meant. "Yeah, why?" He asked for your full name. My stomach dropped. "Please tell me you didn't give it to him." I thought he just wanted to compliment you. "He said you were the amazing waitress from the other night." I didn't reply. I was sick. That feeling, the one in your chest when you know something bad's about to happen, was back, stronger than ever. Then I got the text. "Hey, it's Trevor. Your favorite customer. I know you said you couldn't give your number out, so I got it myself. Now you didn't break any rules." Haha. That haha felt like a punch to the gut. I blocked the number immediately. A few nights later, after I finished my shift, I walked to my car in the nearly empty lot behind the dine, and there it was, tucked under my windshield wiper. An envelope. I got in the car, locked the doors and opened it. Inside were photos of me, taken through the diner windows from the parking lot. Me refilling coffee, me wiping tables, me wiping tables, me wiping tables, me wiping tables, me wiping my apartment, me unlocking the front door, me taking out the trash. One photo was taken through my living room window at night. I could barely breathe. I drove straight to the police station, envelope clutched in shaking hands. The officer on duty took one look and called a detective. They told me it was enough to confront him, especially paired with the texts. The next day, a detective contacted Trevor directly. They warned him any more contact would be considered harassment, and he'd be arrested. I never heard from him again. But that wasn't enough for me. I quit the diner. My lease was almost up anyway, so I moved to a new place across town. New job, new apartment, new number. Trevor was the first and only true stalker I've ever had. But once is more than enough. So if you ever get that feeling that someone's watching, don't ignore it. Your instincts are there for a reason. Thanks for listening to my story. If you found this chilling or eye-opening, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below to share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life horror stories. Stay safe out there, and thanks for watching.